everyone. A very warm welcome to Miss Laura Prabhu, our guest for this lecture, and to the students. Today's lecture will be based on the theme of identity, equality, and gender justice. I'm Malika Kukreja, and I will be continuing to coordinate this lecture for today. The second part of today's lecture series, based on the theme of identity, equality, and gender justice, will be delivered by a specialist having diverse work experience in the field of gender studies, Ms. Laura Prabhu. Ms. Prabhu will relate the theme for today's lecture from the community's perspective. Ms. Laura Prabhu is the executive director and co-founder of the NGO Sequin Center for Equity and Inclusion. It was set up in 2009 and has been doing pioneering work with vulnerable women and girls in urban and rural areas, focusing on gender equity and using sports for development. The organization has had an outreach of 3.2 lakh beneficiaries till date. Prior to that, she was associated with the United Nations Development Fund for Women. Ms. Prabhu has had over 25 years of work experience, having worked as a researcher, journalist, filmmaker, and development professional. She served as member of the Working Group on Women's Empowerment for the 12th Five-Year Plan for the Government of India. She's been a member of the Sexual Harassment Committee in public and private sector firms. She is the co-convener of the National Alliance for Women's Football in India. Her NGO Sequin has also received several awards. I welcome you, ma'am, for taking time to enlighten the students on this important issue of gender studies. Before we begin this session, I would like to remind the students regarding the rules of the lecture which have been shared previously, that is to maintain the decorum during the session while also being an active participant. Ma'am, we welcome you today to begin with this lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful series of conversations that you all are having. And you all must be quite tired after one, I'm sure, a power-packed session before this. So I do hope you have some energy left for me. And I'm hoping that this will be a participatory kind of a process.
Sure,
it shouldn't be a one-way lecture because we have to learn from each other. I've been told to keep it a mix of Hindi and English.
Yes.
So my comfort is generally I kind of fall back on English. तो मैं कोशिश करूँगी कि मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश को बैलेंस करके present करूँ. But in case there is any confusion, lack of understanding, so please stop me at that point itself so that I can, repeat the point. Also, any questions or any inputs while I'm speaking, I'm very happy to take questions in the, in the course of the conversation as well. So, so thank you. And to begin with, I think you all have already kind of almost like a week into your gender training sessions. फिर भी जब मैं अपना presentation रखूंगी, I really want to unpack each of these points that are there on the PowerPoint over here. Identity, equality, gender justice. In words, का मतलब क्या है? I think it's really important for us to have a common understanding even before I can really come to the perspective of the communities, the kind of work that we do. I just want to spend some time in building that common understanding of each of these words. So Rahat is here to facilitate me. So if you can move to the first slide, Rahat. Yeah, तो मैं थोड़ा सा आप लोगों से थोड़ा participation चाहती हूँ यहाँ पे. I want some volunteer to come forward to tell me which line is longer, A, B or C, D. Can I have some responses? Please unmute and give me some answers, please.
A, B. Ma'am, it's A, B.
Anybody else? Any other points of view? Anybody else has a contradictory view? Does anyone think CD is bigger? No, everyone agrees AB is longer. So आपके computer screen में होगा, you can actually put your fingers to measure it actually. It's exactly the same. AB and CD is exactly the same. It's just at an angle, so it's looking longer. Yeah, can you move to the next one? Okay, so ये सीढ़ियां हैं, ये ऊपर जा रहे हैं या नीचे जा रहे हैं? Could anybody volunteer?
Both ways.
Both ways. Yeah, so it's not very clear, right? Depends on your perspective, which direction you go to, and it'll take you to that direction. Yeah, very true. The next one, please. Okay, so I want a volunteer over here who could just tell me, who could just describe this person for me. Anyone who could volunteer for me, please?
Anybody
Just
can
a
volunteer,
girl
you can please
with
raise your
a
hand.
just a
Please.
girl with a braided hairstyle, braided bun sort of hairstyle.
Okay. और कुछ बताइए इसके बारे में.
ये दो human with a long hair.
Okay, long hair. और क्या? Like can you kind of make some assumptions कि who's this person, where from, and any other adjectives or any other description you can give me of this person. You can use your imagination. You kind of try and infer, seeing this perspective, what you can figure out of this person.
Ma'am, how can we judge a person with a hairstyle? Or
No, you're not
how the
judging,
way
but you're describing. What do you feel? What's a first gut feeling who this person is? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it Indian? Is it a foreigner? Old, young?
Foreigner. This is a foreigner girl. What I feel like is, she's a lady, and she probably have a very casual sort of attitude because of the hairstyle. I can feel like that, like it's a messy hair bun and all, which she has put it up.
Age group कुछ पता चल रहा है आपको? Any kind of sense?
Age group maybe between 18 to 25.
Okay.
Age group would be between 18 to 25.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other inputs? Any other kind of?
She's a funky sort of girl with a very cool and not very girly sort of things. Like maybe I can understand because I wear such shirts, so it is a bit relatable for me.
Okay. So thanks a lot. So can we move to the next slide? Okay. Now do you change your mind or you feel the same way?
It's a guy.
Okay. Could be Indian, right? Could be from Northeast or could maybe from out or not sure. Age group, maybe you got it right.
Ma'am, he can be a boy also.
Yes, yes. Right?
Yeah.
Great.
Now it seems like that, yes, it is
Yeah.
a male person.
That's correct. Yeah. So we'll move to the next one. So what really I was trying to get at आपके जो initial slides में is that everything that we kind of you know, the way we perceive things, the way we understand things really comes from the lens of our perspective, right? If you look at the images that I showed you in the initial few slides, perspective is from various different angles, right? Like for example, when you were looking at this person from the back, you didn't really have a frontal view, right? So when you are observing some incident, it really depends on where you are seated. Similarly, if you are trying to make a value judgment of something, it really depends on the kind of upbringing that you may have had, the kind of attitudes that you've developed, and that in a great sense defines how you understand the world around you, how you understand people and you know, the various constructs that we have around us. And when you kind of participate in this kind of a process of gender training, it's really very, very important to understand this in a very deep manner. And this kind of understanding will not only help you to grasp and have a solid understanding of gender, but pretty much everything. क्योंकि अगर आप आज के डेट पे you look around you, जो माहौल हमारे you know, हम इस time में है, when you're talking about fake news, when you're talking about propaganda, in every aspect really, it's very important to understand that everything that you hear or you observe or you feel is really through this lens, and you've got to understand what that lens is, you know, and then kind of step back to be able to have a really objective view. So that leads me to the next point, Rahat, the next slide, please. Yeah. So what is the first concept jo aaj ke session mein, you know, even in your previous session, you did talk about identity. equality and gender, but really what is identity? And constantly we harp on identity in the context of gender, in the context of the larger reality of the world. Everywhere when you're talking about politics, everything is about identity politics, right? It's so overwhelming in today's context because everything is becoming so polarized. Therefore, it is very important to understand what you mean by identity. So what is essentially, when you're looking at yourself, what is your identity really? And what are the essential questions? Who am I, or what am I? So unpacking this, if you move forward, Rahat, next one. Next slide, yeah. So is identity something which is very linear and that straight-jacketed? Not really, right? Agar aap apne identity ko hi thoda sa, if you kind of scrape the layers and you go into a deeper understanding of what you mean by identity, you realize that it's so multidimensional. So when you're talking, are you talking about your individual identity or are you talking about your group identity? So aaj yahan pe aapke gender training mein I can see about 84 people here. So each of us has this, this particular moment, we have this common identity of all being a participant of this group. But then each of us has an individual identity which may be separate. One can be, a bunch of you may be students from the same college. It may be a homogeneous group, a group of young women who are studying a particular subject in a particular college. That could be homogeneous, but then if you break up that group, you will see there's so many layers in that identity. People from different religions, different language, and so on and so forth. So it's not an easy thing, right? When you're talking about identity, I just want you all to be very mindful what this identity is all about, right? So there's so many ways in which you must be able to understand what identity is. Like your identity, if you're sitting in India, you are a citizen of this country. You may be from the majority community, and the same person who goes, maybe you go off to the US, you become a minority, and so your entire identity changes over there, the same person, right? So if you move to the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what is really the only thing in common that we all of us have across board, across nations, around the world? And that's really the commonality of our species, right? Ki hum sab human hain. Pretty much, if you look at it, no two individuals are identical. The only thing that we have in common, which cuts across every other element, is that of our status of being human beings. So when you look at the social structures that we have, the fundamental thing is about humankind, human beings. And when you start the conversation about equality, about identity, se aap next concept equality ke paas jaate ho, then you've got to understand that it is anchored in human rights. So if you go through this definition, which is the formal definition of human rights by the UN, talking about how all human beings cutting across all categories of, sex and nation and ethnic origin and so on and so forth, must have these rights equally and without discrimination. So I really want you to take note of those two words which are marked in bold. That is equality and non-discrimination. So human rights is essentially pegged, it's anchored on these two very fundamental concepts. Let's move to the next slide. So ye human rights jo hai, ye kahan se aaya? Kisne banaya? I mean, it's a set of rules which kind of, ensures that all human beings have a basic minimum. But who made those set of rules? And, can those rules vary? How do we know what is my right and what is not? So there are certain normative standards. What do you mean by normative standards? Ki a group of people coming together and agreeing, there's a common understanding and agreement that this is the set of rights that we confer on ourselves. So where do these come from? So tangibly अगर आप उसको समझना चाहो तो it basically is the constitution, the laws that we have in our country. But you know, where do the constitutions draw it from? Like, how did we know what are the rights we should keep and we should not? Really, most of the constitutions across the world were derived from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Many of you will be aware that when the UN was set up, one of the first things that they undertook was to have a global understanding of what all the countries come together to understand what are the set of human rights that we as a humanity accept as the standard, normative standard. So there are a lot of these international human rights standards which have been, you know, which are there for us to refer to, and then at your country level, आपके constitutions है, आपके laws हैं, which oftentimes relate to the international law, and sometimes it may also go beyond and expand that scope. As we know, the human rights standards, ki laws are applicable to everyone in the country, and it, you know, it is incumbent on the government of the day to ensure ki every person has access to their human rights. If you can go to the next one, Rahat. So I now want to shift your focus onto the word equality, right? That was a second key concept that we're looking at today. So equality, तो जब हम you know, human rights के definition को पढ़ रहे थे, you'd have noted that equality was the anchor for that human rights, right? Like everybody must have these rights equally. So, but what is equality? And have you heard of the word equity? And what is the difference between these two words? So if you look at this picture, you know, and they say in a picture can say 1,000 words, and it's so apparent, right? What this picture is all about. Can I have a volunteer, maybe somebody who could explain this picture to us a little?
Ma'am, I can try,
Can
but
I?
One by one, please. One by one. Please say your name and
ma'am, myself, Pragya Hudda. Ma'am, what I can understand through this picture is that on the first part of the picture tries to convey equal status to all, but when it comes to equity, it says that difference are to be treated differently. Like the first man doesn't require a stool, but the third child truly requires it. So this was the equity to give some sort of special treatment those who are really in need of that
Right.
treatment.
So what do you feel is the basic difference between equality and equity?
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, basically, after looking at this picture, what I can feel like is equality is somehow generating discrimination, as I can feel from that purple, the guy in the purple t-shirt is still not being able to watch the match. But we are, when talking about equality in the layman language, we say that equality means giving equal access to everybody. But after looking at this picture, what I can feel like is it is also generating discrimination sort of thing in the society, because आपने सबको equal तो provide कर दिया, but maybe हर किसी की need equal ना हो, maybe किसी की उससे ज़्यादा हो और किसी की उससे कम हो, and that's what I can feel like is there in equity. Like whatever one need in their life has been given to them. Maybe purple जो person है, the person in the purple t-shirt requires 2 or 3 stools, so that has been given to him. But equality के according एक एक ही देना है सबको, तो वैसे ही दिया, but maybe हमने ये नहीं देखा कि दूसरे की need शायद ज्यादा हो.
Right.
So I
मतलब
can
जब आप
feel that
डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कह रहे हो, तो डू यू फील कि इंटेंट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का था? जिसने वो 3 डब्बे वहां पे रखे थे, 3 स्टूल्स रखे थे, क्या उसका इंटेंट खराब था कि मैं तो डिस्क्रिमिनेट कर रहा हूँ? What do you feel was the intention of the person?
No, the intention was not of discrimination, but it is of distribution. The way it was distributed. Intention is not of discrimination, because equality doesn't say to discriminate, but the way equality is practiced, it shows that discrimination, and how it is being implemented in the society, that shows the discrimination. Intentions never shows what discrimination is.
And also, what is the key difference between the equity and equality? In equity, all three are able to watch the match, right? The intent of putting those stools was to help them to watch the match. So जिसने stools डाले थे वहां पे, intention was fine कि मैंने stool डाल दिया and all will be able to watch the match. But when you're talking about equity, your work doesn't just end with putting the stools. Your work ends only when all three were able to watch the match. So you understand the difference कि equity goes a step beyond to ensure कि final जो results हैं वो equally सबके पास जाएं. And this really requires for you to wear that lens. जिसने stool वहां पे डाले, if they were not aware about the height difference between all three, they would not have been able to seek the solution, that arrived over here on the equity side. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. Yeah. So, what is equity really? And, how do you define it? So, actually, when we work in the development sector, हम हमेशा सब्सटैंटिव इक्वालिटी की बात करते हैं, क्योंकि मेरी संस्था का नाम है सेंटर फॉर इक्विटी एंड इंक्लूजन. वी आर कॉन्स्टेंटली ट्राइंग टू काइंड ऑफ गो बियॉन्ड इक्वालिटी, क्योंकि फॉर्मल इक्वालिटी डजंट ऑलवेज really give you the results that you are looking at. So when I'm talking about equality in this presentation, I'm talking about substantive equality. Substantive equality is mindful of people's identities. It is mindful that everyone is different. It is mindful that one solution does not fit everybody. It is extremely concerned about going beyond formal equality into actual, from de jure to de facto. Therefore, only access and opportunity is not enough. It really looks at the end of it. What do you ultimately get? Do you get the fruits of your labor? Do you get the results that you ultimately need? कि एक बच्चे को स्कूल में भर्ती कर दिया, मगर वो पास ना हो पाए, तो there's no point, right? It's not just about getting a child enrolled, but also making sure that that child is able to learn. So it's about the outcome. So outcome is very, very essential when you are talking about substantive equality. And substantive equality, the fundamental understanding behind that is from a human rights framework. कि कोई अगर पीछे है, तो हम उसको charity नहीं कर रहे. It's an entitlement. Why is it an entitlement? Because it's my human right. I might be short, I might be tall, but I have a human right, and it is my entitlement. And my country, my state is duty bound to ensure that I'm able to exercise my rights as my entitlement. So ये जो thinking है, this has to be really understood when we go forward in having this conversation. क्योंकि if the way we work, my organization works, we work with a human rights framework with this fundamental core understanding. Can you move to the next one, Rahul? So, ये जो one size doesn't fit all, कुछ लोग जो हैं, इनको थोड़ा ज़्यादा चाहिए. Who are these people really? And who are these people who tend to get marginalized, who tend to get excluded? अगर किसी भी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर आप देखो, अगर एक क्लासरूम को ही पकड़ लो, there are some people who may be not able to participate effectively, maybe weak in something, or may have some issues for which they are not able to get integrated. That can happen in any setting, and it does happen in your social setting, in your family, in your community, in your state. There'll always be segments of society who are marginalized. Marginalized meaning left out. They're excluded from the process. Because you see the way our processes are designed, they are not, they don't have the sensitivity to be able to have structures which are easily accessible to all. So who are the people who may typically not be able to access? So those are the people who have vulnerability, who are marginalized. And usually अगर आप देखो society के अंदर, these are the broad categories for discrimination. So usually it is gender, sexuality, religion, caste, ethnicity, race, disabilities, and so on and so forth, and many others. I had seen that you are going to have a session on intersectionality, and it's very, very fundamental for all of us to be mindful of intersectionality. क्योंकि अगर मैं राइट्स ऑफ डिसेबल की बात करूं या माइनॉरिटी राइट्स की बात करूं या जेंडर राइट्स की बात करूं, वी हैव टू ऑलवेज अंडरस्टैंड दैट there's just one piece and that there's so many dimensions of marginalization, most cross-cutting being, of course, poverty in terms of income, along with so many other social contradictions which make people vulnerable and excluded from the whole system. Can we go forward? So now we finally come to the third piece of gender and gender justice. So is gender a vulnerability? Am I feeling vulnerable? Are you vulnerable? Many girls say, we are not vulnerable. We are very empowered. So is gender a vulnerability? Let's have a look at these bunch of images on your screen. And can I have a volunteer who can tell me, does she feel that they're vulnerable, and if so, how? Any volunteers?
You can raise your hand and introduce yourself. Anybody willing to volunteer? Students can raise their hands. Pragya, would you like to answer?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Ma'am, I won't say that like they are vulnerable, but yeah, they are deprived of a few things. Like in total, when it comes to the first picture where the mother is carrying her baby, maybe she is absolutely satisfied with what she has, but she is deprived with the facilities and the maybe she is not knowing that अभी उनके बच्चे के लिए बहुत सारे राइट्स स्टिल देयर आर सम राइट्स उनके लिए अभी बहुत सारे राइट्स हैं उनके पास जो वो कर सकती हैं अपने लिए फ्लरिश पर वो नहीं कर पा रही बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस आई गेस when it comes to the second one I don't think so they are vulnerable many of us at least they are getting the opportunity to go to school and they are happy with that vulnerability would be where they could not have the access to go to school or go to college say the third one maybe she she's absolutely fine with what she has she is a typical modern girl like us she might not face any vulnerability as such and the fourth one I would agree that she is actually vulnerable because she is nor she's aware of her rights nor she is getting anything she is being treated as a servant maybe with her from her family or something like that so she's not aware of anything what she deserves she's not even aware of what she deserves the fifth one she's a modern girl with employment opportunity this is what an ideal state should be that's how I perceive and the last one uh, I won't comment on that it is something natural this has to happen one day to everyone so how come this can be treated as vulnerability unless her children tortures her or something negative this is all thank you
Ma'am, we have another volunteer,
Yeah, please go ahead.
Tenzin,
Yeah.
can you please unmute yourself and speak?
Yes, ma'am. For me, I don't see any vulnerability in this picture at all because first picture is a picture of a mother, and a mother is the strongest creature on earth. She can handle anything. And in here we can see that the very fact that she's even holding up a baby which weighs few kilos in one single hand, that itself speaks a lot. And the second picture of girls going to school, well, this doesn't look like vulnerability at all. Like she's getting education,
Okay. But
she's
can I
being
come in
aware.
and ask you a question then? You don't feel that this girl in the middle, the one who's this very wonderful, empowering photograph of that girl on the cycle, do you feel she has any vulnerabilities which are a little more for her than maybe her brother? Do you feel that there's anything that may be a little more disadvantages for her than her brother of the same age who's also in the same class?
Yes, mom, it can be.
Well,
What
mom,
do you
like
think those
it
be?
might differ.
Yeah, so what's that? Like, what is it that might make her more vulnerable than her male counterpart? So she's
Mom,
going down cycling. Did you read that the news clip recently
Ma'am,
about this girl who went to the US? A very bright girl who was from a backward community, and she got full scholarship. She's studying in America, and she came back and she was being sexually harassed. She had to make she was chased down the road and she died in the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel that could be a vulnerability for her?
Ma'am, that's not her vulnerability. That's the mindset of others. Like it's
Of
not
course, vulnerability does not mean some physical weakness. Vulnerability means your situation in this society. Does it put certain added, like, does it exclude you in any way? Does it create a vulnerability which may put you to harm?
Ma'am,
So
can I?
yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am, what I feel like is that every woman in this particular picture is vulnerable in some or any condition. Let me tell you how. Basically, vulnerability means that ability of being attacked, harmed physically or emotionally. So I think every woman in this society has been emotionally harmed by anyone. If I talk about the first image, so what I can feel is that be it physically or be it emotionally, in some point of life, she must have been vulnerable to all such things. And if I talk about the fifth picture, we can see that she's an empowered lady and all such stuff. She's educated, she seems well off, and she must be earning for herself. But at the same time, the woman who is earning is also vulnerable to certain emotional sort of things which has been happening in the family background, be it from the parent side or be it from the in-law side. So it keeps on happening. And if I talk about the second image, so the girl going to the school doesn't mean that she is not vulnerable to anything. She is vulnerable because it may be like her parents doesn't allow her to take up higher education and all such stuff, because the area, the background of the picture seems like she's from any village or something like that, and she's not from that well off sort of thing. And if I talk about the third image, so the third image seems quite beautiful and all. So maybe this girl is vulnerable because of her beauty, because we have every now and then been listening to the things like girl has been acid attacked or something like that and all. And then if I talk about the fourth image, this lady seems to be from any tribal area sort of thing and all. So yeah, maybe she is also vulnerable to rapes and all, because they doesn't have access to proper laws and rights, and they are excluded from the society many a times. And if I talk about the last image, so yes, many a times, maybe maybe in some point of time, not talking about the old age that like children and all, they kick out their old age parents and all, but maybe in her earlier age as well, she has faced some sort of things in the society and all such things. And maybe an old age women, so maybe I feel she might face vulnerability because of her gender, because every now and then we have heard the cases of of rapes with old age ladies as well. So gender gender is vulnerable to all these things. And moreover, it's not about the quality of your education, it's not about the quality, it's not about your age or anything, but it's about the gender. It's about the gender, how society is perceiving it to be. And it's about those vulnerabilities which are given which society is giving to us constantly. It's not about vulnerability never comes from education and all such things. It empowers us, but it is the society who has perceived the gender in that particular way and has decided our roles and all such things, and that's why we are vulnerable to all such things which are there in the society. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very, very exhaustive and perfect because it covers most of the points. You preempted all the things that I was going to say. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you,
You
ma'am.
know, so the point is not about women being vulnerable because they're a weaker sex. That's not the point at all. The point is, what is the society's construct like which restricts women, right? So if you look at the rural context, wonder what age she may have got married at, wonder whether she has access to contraception, wonder how many children she has, wonder how safe she is out there in the field, and so on and so forth. Similarly, for the woman who's collecting water, we all know that in rural areas, the physical labor of collecting water is purely for women and young girls, and it's a lot of physical labor. The women literally work like cattle in the rural areas. They are physically exhausted at the end of the day. Men don't usually share the workload at all. They do work at home as well as work in the field. If you look at the girls in the cycle, as was rightly put out there, that they're very vulnerable to being attacked on the road, they're vulnerable to early marriage, they're vulnerable to dropout. The girl who's sitting with the computer, what are the possibilities? Maybe she may have to drop out once she gets married, maybe she won't be able to work once she has children, maybe she may be exposed to sexual harassment at workplace. So there are many gendered challenges. This girl, the beautiful girl with her hair open, the pressure of having to look like that. She could be suffering from bulimia. She could be so anxious all the time of not being able to look perfect. And of course, the worry of being, stalked, sexually harassed, etc. And the old lady, as you mentioned, recently we saw in the newspaper, during the lockdown, you had a 90-year-old lady being raped. Are you able to hear me? Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, it was the worst thing during the lockdown, right? When in Delhi, we had a 90-year-old lady being raped. And also, we don't know if she owns property, if she has any control over her assets, and she's bound to be dependent on some male member of her family. So yes, there's many, many points in which there could be a possibility. I'm not saying for sure, but there are possibilities. As we move on, maybe you can think beyond that as well. Can we move to the next slide?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I just have a question regarding the previous slide.
Sure.
Do you think that being a woman is being vulnerable, or being a woman of different stratas or different area, belonging to a different area, is being vulnerable? I couldn't understand that.
Okay.
Can we have your name, please?
Ma'am, myself Pragya Hooda. I am a second year student of political science honors from Mata Sundari College.
So can we move to the previous slide? Let's just stay with that slide. So your point is absolutely valid, because right at the outset, I spoke about intersectionality, right? So their identity is not linear, right? So each of these girls have many layers to their identity. You can be a young adolescent girl, you could be an unmarried working woman, you could be an old widow, you could be a woman with so many children. So each stage of your life, over here, your age, your income, your educational status, your caste, your religion, so many things interplay, right? It's complicated right to the outset. I told you it's complicated. It's not that simple, because whenever you talk about gender, you've got to break it up into multiple lenses. However, there is something cross-cutting with gender, and we will understand why as we move along, because each of these things, each of these vulnerabilities, say for example poverty, is a cross-cutting element through various other kinds of vulnerabilities. Similarly, gender is a cross-cutting vulnerability across, multiple vulnerabilities. Is the light? Let's just put on the light. Yeah. Okay, great. So let me just, I will come to your point again as we move on to the next few slides, because I think this is the most important thing when you are asking, is being a woman vulnerable? Is this girl who's looking so empowered, is she vulnerable? What do you mean by vulnerability? Why do you feel that she should be weaker than the man? So we've kind of explored that a little bit more.
Yes,
Is she
ma'am.
weaker? Or you're not talking about weaker. You're talking about vulnerability as in what makes her vulnerable to being excluded. We want women to have inclusion. We want her to have equal rights as everybody else. But is it a case that she may not have that access? That's what we are looking at, and we'll explore it as we move on further. If you could just move to the next slide, Rahat. Yeah. So this image really talks about how you envisage the man, right? Macho, completely in command. He's the hero, biceps, strong, superhero. If you go to the next slide, Rahat, yeah, is just the opposite of that, right? Women have been always envisaged as the delicate darling, gentle, beautiful, shy. So look at the positive values that we attach to each gender role. And both these values kind of feed into each other. They are opposites of each other, because if you have to have a macho man, then of course you have to have a delicate darling. And these images reinforce each other. We just move to the next slide, Rahat. Yeah, so, where do these images come from? And I think you all may have had a previous session, so I'm not delving too much into gender stereotypes. But really, when you're having this conversation around gender, the most core thing, the foundation of this entire conversation comes from gender stereotypes. And you really need to completely sharpen your understanding. If you want to understand gender, you've really got to understand gender stereotypes and where they come from, because that's really the foundation of all the understanding. And what is gender? And is it something that you're born with? I think by now all of you would have come to that understanding that gender is sociological and it's sex which is biological, right? Your genitals when you're born, your sexual organs and your hormones are what define you as a male or female. And the minute we are born, from that instant we start imbibing our socialization, and that's how we create ourselves into a gendered identity. And of course now with a much broader understanding, we are also able to understand so many multiple complex kinds of gender identities. And so all these come from our socialization process. We are not born with these attributes, right? Like an infant is born. Infant is not born with all these attributes ki I like this color, or I will be good at this kind of work, or this is how I will want to dress. We all have that understanding, right? That those are absolutely socialization, and these images are all constructs. They've been very carefully crafted. They've been crafted over centuries to such an extent where we've completely imbibed them. And I guess by now you're also all quite well aware that this all started out with patriarchy. This is all anchored in patriarchy. And what a man is supposed to be and what a woman is supposed to be is defined under that patriarchal social structure. Just to kind of, in case you have questions of where patriarchy came from, right? There's so many social structures across the, across the world. You have your tribal societies, and, if there's a student of anthropology here, you will know that there's so many various social forms, and patriarchy is the most dominant social form across the world. And patriarchy really started out way back then in ancient times, when human beings moved from hunter-gatherer stage to a settled life. And it all started from there, when you had domestication and you had women's roles, the gender roles being defined for, division of labor. You never had a public space or a private space when there was a hunter-gatherer stage, right? But it's only when settled life begins you have a home. So ghar ke andar is private and ghar ke bahar is public. These are all very notional, right? Because jab ghar nahi tha, to what was private, right? Everything's open. So all these things are a part of social processes, and that's how it started out. And so that's why really animal husbandry and husband, right? The word husband really comes from there, from this whole domestication process. So then patriarchy creates these roles for men and women, and it defines the role for men and women. Men work out, women work in. Men have to be in charge of maintaining the patriarchal order. They are superior in terms of hierarchy. They have the burden of maintaining this social structure. Right? So we can move to the next one, Rahat. So patriarchy, what does it really lead to? This is the kind of social formation that we have, and it deeply impacts our mindsets and attitudes. As we just mentioned, when you know that you're a woman and this is how you have to behave, or you're a man, then that's why your entire attitudes are shaped like that. At an individual level, and at a societal level, your cultural norms and structural constraints, as in, what men are supposed to do, what women are supposed to do, all these things get defined by patriarchy. It goes beyond to look at access, because see, patriarchy kind of demarcates public role for men and private role for women. So it automatically has a lot to do with resources, right? Resources are all out there in that public space. You've got to cross over to be able to access any kind of resource. So by default, these access parameters also by default are very, very gendered. So all these things, fundamentally take us to this obsessive male-child preference, because after all, in this whole sphere, it is the male who propagates family, is the superior gender, and is in control of all the resources. So naturally, that whole obsession with the male child. And in order to maintain all these things, violence against women and girls and other genders really becomes like a tool for maintaining patriarchy. Can move to the next one, Rahat. So I'm just expanding a little more on gender-based violence. जब आप violence against women की बात करते हो, what do you mean by violence against women? My time is really short, so I'm just going through some of these concepts very quickly, but I'm sure you're going to reinforce your understanding in other sessions. But really, violence against women is the fundamental tool to maintain patriarchal order. It's like this danda, right? Ma'am will sit in class and danda pakad ke badmashi ki to danda. So it's almost like the ruler, right? The ruler that you have to be able to maintain discipline, like the baton of the havaldar. So gender-based violence is the tool to be able to keep that system intact. It's a tool of power. So, and the second gender-based type of gender-based violence we talk about is really structural violence. What are the systems, what are the rules, what are the access barriers that are created in this society in such a way to be able to maintain patriarchy? These are two extremely important concepts to ingrain in our mind. And when you're talking about physical violence, you're talking about physical violence, sexual violence, you're talking about, emotional violence, you're talking about all aspects which are physically, we are able to see, but you must understand that gender-based violence is as much structural, not allowing a girl to study, not allowing her to have a livelihood, not giving her money in hand, not allowing her to go out on the road because of this fear of violence, lack of mobility. All these things come under the category of structural violence and access barriers. If you can move to the next one. So I don't have too much time, so I'm just picking on a few aspects which I think are really very critical and fundamental for us to understand. And I just want to spend a little time on this obsession about the male child, right? I mean, what's the whole point of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao constantly saying? Because it is so inherent, right? This obsession with the beta. And it all starts from there, right? Right from day one, when a girl is born and a boy is born, this really kind of defines the entire trajectory from there. And you know, there are multiple reasons, right, for the male child preference, simply because in a patriarchal structure, it is the man who is at the helm of the structure. Therefore, it's understood and natural, right? When we want to have a male child, because the male child is going to get greater access. Abhi, hamare laws have been amended quite a bit. So Hindu Succession Act was amended in 2006, which allowed for girls to inherit family property, but we all know that girls do not claim, because social pressure itna hota hai ki girls do not, you know, if they're married, they don't go back and claim their share in their parental property, because there is this social and cultural pressure. Even if there is a law in place, they don't. There is the percentage of the number of women who you know, inherit properties is so minuscule that that it kind of tells the real story. So multiple reasons for you know, male child preference. But iska consequence kya hai? Just have a look at that image on your side. And there's this Kanu Sangot from Gujarat, had 13 daughters with a total of 16 pregnancies. And this is not very unusual, right? Bahut dekha hai. I mean, if you look at your elite parts like your Delhi and Bombay also, it's very common ki 3 बेटियां हैं, फिर 4th वाला बेटा है. हमेशा अगर 4-5 बेटियां हैं तो last वाला बेटा है. It's like they keep trying till they have a male child. And it's such a common sight. And what does it come at the cost of those multiple pregnancies that that woman goes through? It takes a toll on her body. And all those girls who are really unwanted, right? And ultimately you have that male child. And think of the poverty, because these people feel कि जब तक in a male ho, they have to keep trying, because the child will ultimately look after the family. But the burden, financial burden on that family is something which, you know, is this a practical kind of approach? But this is the reality, right? And a very common sight across. So can I just move to the next slide? Yeah. So the point is कि अच्छा तो फिर आपके इतने बड़े families नहीं होंगे, तो what is the solution? Well, the solution was pretty drastic, because when the ultrasound technology came into India, it was misused in a big way to be able to eliminate the girl child. It was seemed like a practical solution कि अच्छा 15 लड़कियां पैदा करके एक लड़का ना करके, बस आप just sex determination करते जाओ, और लड़की होगी तो उसको बस abort करते जाना. Finally, when you have a male child, then you will be able to have only one child. Well, maybe from economics perspective, it might make sense, but demographics is a completely different story. And it's a frightening story. And this was something which really was first flagged in the 1990s, early 1990s, by Professor Amartya Sen, who flagged for the first time that there's a serious crisis in India. There's some, you know, how many 3 billion women were missing. Like they had just disappeared. When you're looking at the demographic data, where were these women? They just disappeared from the face of the earth. Because in any healthy, normal society, men and women have to be equal, 50-50%. ठीक है, चलो 1 or 2% ऊपर नीचे हो गया, मगर more or less in a normal kind of a social scenario, men and women are usually equal in number. But look at the data over here. At the all India level, for every 1,000 men, there are 67 women who are missing. And look at the numbers in Delhi. The number only 863 women in every 1,000 men. So if you look at all the other data, so I just wanted to share this a little more in details with you, क्योंकि हमारे काफी सारे preconceived notions होते हैं कि नहीं ऐसे तो गांव में होता है, शहर में ही नहीं होता. So I want you to pay a little extra attention to these kind of figures, like the rural-urban figures. You'll be surprised to know that this practice is much worse in urban areas than in rural areas. Maybe because you need to be rich enough to access ultrasound technology, but it goes to show कि ये जो mindset है ना of male preference and just obsessively longing for a male child is not something which is restricted to a rural setting. This figure shows you that. Have a look at the state-wise figures. The state with the best indicator is Kerala, where actually usually कहा जाता है कि in a normal healthy society women tend to outlive men. So Kerala's figure really is indicative of a normal healthy demographics. But look at the state of Haryana. Haryana has improved tremendously, because when this crisis was brought to the forefront in the 90s, I remember I was working at UNIFEM at that point of time, and Haryana figures were 780. It was like a crisis situation. Like the women had just disappeared. Absolutely, like, it's not a joke for 250 to 300 women per 1,000 men just disappearing from the face of the earth. And these are all figures I've taken, the latest figures. So this is how it is now. Haryana has improved, and yet it's in a pretty bad shape. If you look at the union territory level, look at the figures of Daman and Diu. How terribly backward it is. And if you look at the economics thing, the one of the richest district, union territory in the country. A very wealthy union territory with very decent income levels, etc. Have a look at the worst district in the country, Daman. Just imagine half the girls have disappeared. 591 girls per 1,000 boys. It is like at a crisis level over there. So this says a lot for the kind of mindset that we're dealing with. Can we move to the next one? So I don't want to go too much in. See, there's a lot of data that I can share with you, which will give you the shocking reality of the gender gap that we have in our country. But I just thought I'll just throw up a few, like, so in terms of health, like a few pointers, like women, India has the, unfortunate kind of, tag of being #1 in girl brides in the world. We account for 1/3 of all child brides, girl child brides in the world, which is kind of embarrassing. And many other figures, I haven't gone into too much of details, but simple things like access to contraception, access to menstrual health, all these things are a huge crisis in India. India has one of the worst figures in terms of anemia. Most number of adolescent girls are anemic in India than in any other country in the world, which actually is reflective ki, there is a discrimination in terms of the quality of nourishment and food that the girls get. But I wanted to share one interesting figure over here with you, which talks about the mindset. In India, it's one of the few, 93% of the government's sterilization programs are all directed to women. While it's proven that the health hazards for a man to go through sterilization is like next to, like, it's minimal, it's nothing. But many women die in the process, because for women, when you do sterilization, it's a very internal kind of a procedure. And we have read in the paper about how many women have died in the process. But, this is a state policy, the government policy, and it is so patriarchal. It is shocking. It is shocking that the government feels that their family planning program should be, based on sterilizing women. So these things are something which, so I want you to look at these kind of data and these kind of figures which really go deeper into our mindset issues. Can we move to the next slide? So I didn't want to share too much about education figures with you all, but just to say this much that there was a huge gender gap in education figures and girls enrollment rate. But in the last 10 years or so, especially since right to education was passed, बहुत rapid improvement आया, and it was, the gap had been closed phenomenally. However, in the current lockdown situation, जहाँ पे डिजिटल गैप इतना ब्रॉड है और जेंडर कल्चरल नॉर्म्स के वजह से वी आर वेरी कंसर्न कि गर्ल्स may again slide back and the figures may regress tremendously. Having said that, I'd still say that education में girls have improved the situation a lot. Now हम पहले जब डिस्कस कर रहे थे and आपने वो फोटोग्राफ देखा of that girl cycling to school and you said she's not vulnerable. She's looking empowered. The girl who's sitting with the computer is looking empowered. But I just want you to look at this data and think again, go back to that image and think again about vulnerability. The shocking data that we have on women's workforce participation. 97% of women are employed in the unorganized sector in India, which means only 3% are in a proper formal sector employment, which is really shocking, right? We all know कि अगर आपको कोई benefits मिलता है, like for example, maternity benefit or your sexual harassment safety from that or any of those kind of things are only available to women in the formal sector. There was so much of activism जब आपका Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act pass हुआ. But look at the irony of it. It really is it is of course applicable to informal sector as well, but it's mainly for the formal sector. And it's such a small percentage because the vast majority of women who work under very insecure circumstances. Now, I want you to have a look at this very, very important figure, and I would really suggest that you track this very, very important indicator. That is the LFPR, the Labor Force Participation Rate. ये बहुत ही important indicator है जो आपको ILO के website से मिलता रहेगा. You can constantly have an update on that. It really it's an international data set on women's workforce participation. Now, the earlier number I showed you was like of all the women who are employed, most of them are employed in informal sector. But how many women are employed? How many women go out there to work? So the second figure is really that, to tell you how many people are actually employed. And you will be really surprised to note that 2005 mein we had 36.7%, which was pretty low. And it actually fell to 21%. This is pre-pandemic figures that I'm giving you, to 21%, like a massive crash in employment rate. If you look at the Delhi figures, Delhi is the capital of our country, right? International city. And Delhi women's workforce participation is pathetic. It's 11.4, way below the national average, right? Now, agar aap वापस जाके सोचो, these are so many girls are getting educated, they're cycling to school, they have their computers, then why aren't they out there in the workforce, And if they're not out there in the workforce, तो फिर उनके हाथ में पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे? So these are things which we've got to really deeply fundamentally understand, and it is complicated. There are no easy answers. मगर बहुत सारे vulnerabilities आपको समझने पड़ेंगे कि why is it that if you are one side, your education figures have gone up so much, मगर workforce has fallen. So is there any simple kind of understanding saying no, women are very empowered now because they got educated? So then how do you know that empowerment is reality unless there is some outcome, right? So outcome, if I'm educated, then the outcome is that I have got a dignified job and I have money in my hand and I'm able to look after myself and my family. Those outcomes are not showing. So it's a bit of a concern. I do want you to have a look at these other figures, because it's very important for us to have a reality check. We are like, you know, in India it's like this, in Delhi it's like this. How is India located amongst our neighbors and in the world? It's really important for us to know that, because we need to know how far behind we are. And that's why I pulled this figure out for you, you know, in the orange box, and look at it very closely. So internationally, ये gender क्या हमारे country का ही problem है या फिर all over? नहीं, all over है. It is a problem. There are many countries in the world where I mean, in fact, there is no country which is 100% perfect in terms of gender. But in that scenario, where do we stand? So global average for women's workforce participation is 48%, which is not good, but at least, you know, halfway there. Look at the figures of Nepal. They've done phenomenally well in women's employment at 83%. China at 60%, you kind of expect, okay, they'll do pretty well. But look at our neighbors, immediate neighbors, Bangladesh at 35%, and even Pakistan is ahead of us at 22%. And this is all live data from the ILO website. So going back to, you know, that fundamental understanding ki equity and equality, constantly we need to think what are the outcomes that we are looking for women to be actually equal and to actually have those same kind of, you know, outcomes that their male counterpart have without any discrimination. If you can move to the next slide, yeah. So, you know, I have kind of complicated these words for you. You know, each of these words that we were looking at, whether identity, equality, and gender justice, right? Gender, what is justice really? Justice is really the realization of your rights, human rights, whether I'm able to access it or not. That is justice for me. And so this entire process of how patriarchy comes in the way of my accessing my rights, that is this whole process of gender justice. And I've taken a substantial amount of time in talking at the theoretical level, but I will now kind of quickly share with you what we do at an organizational level. So having understood this kind of a, you know, complex, multi-layered understanding of gender gap, how does gender discrimination, how patriarchy has a lifetime, life cycle impact on a girl, right from the time when she's born to the time when she goes to school, to the time when she gets married, to the time she gets old. There's this whole life cycle of violence and discrimination in multiple different ways. Even if there is no direct violence on me, but the fact that I'm going down the road and I am afraid of my security, that itself is violence. The fact that I have to quit my job because of some reason, that is violence. You know, the fact that a girl child has to drop out from school, that's violence. All these things are violence. And so Sequin has this approach of looking at things in a holistic manner. And we feel that we need to address fundamentals if we have to achieve gender justice. So our first project is called Kickstart Equality. And in this program, what we do is we work with adolescents, adolescent girls, and we use the tool of football. Why football is because we are trying to challenge gender roles. Because this whole thing कि लड़कियां घर में बैठेंगी और boys बाहर खेलेंगे, ये जो this entire thing plays out in terms of your physical capacity. जो पहले आप कह रहे थे ना कि this girl is not vulnerable, she's equally strong, she's a mother, she's able to carry that baby. I completely agree with you, but just think about the lost opportunity that a girl has when she's sitting indoors and she's playing with her toys, and her brother is playing outdoors. He's out in the sun, getting vitamin D, building his muscle tone, you know, maneuvering and playing with the ball, making a bunch of friends, you know, knowing his entire colony inside out, having that confidence to be mobile, to know his way around the city, learning the kind of life skills, you know, that is such a head start in life. And if you compare that with his sister, who is very limited to kind of picking up limited roles, she doesn't go out, even if she wants to go out. If you see कि अगर खुद आप देखो अपने जान पहचान में, या फिर you look at yourself, if a girl goes out and really plays, it's not normal, it's out of the normal. Like only a few girls you see who are able to do that. Now it's great for those girls, but those girls struggle also, because if there's one girl and all boys playing football, it's very hard for her. You need a community of peers who all together are able to challenge the stereotype, because not every girl is that confident कि चलो 10 लड़के हैं, मैं अकेली लड़की उनके साथ खेल लूंगी. Everyone's not capable of that. If there's a girl who's capable of it, brilliant, like, you know, all power to her. But not everybody is capable of that kind of confidence. So through our Kickstart Equality program, we build that kind of confidence level in the girls. We tell them to pick up their skills. We tell them to play outdoors. We want them to become strong, tall, capable, make lots of friends, etc. We also want the community around them to think it's normal that girls can go out, girls can have fun, girls can play just like the boys. So that's one program which I'll just share a little clip with you in a bit. Our second program is called Mardo Wali Baat campaign. So Mardo Wali Baat, basically for Sequin, we feel कि ये पूरे gender equality context में you have to, I think we've lost my screen, but that's fine. I can just carry on. So the Mardo Wali Baat campaign essentially is engaged in having a conversation with boys, and conversation on gender, with this whole understanding that gender harms both the girls as well as the boys. Boys are also harmed, right? Because they are told to be these macho, lack of empathy. It's a lot of stress to be this macho man, and it kills a lot of creativity and you know, sensitivity in the boys. And so through our Mardo Wali Baat program, we are helping boys to also kind of create a new kind of future for themselves. So if you look at the kind of skill sets that you need in the you know, new globalized economy, you need a lot of adaptability skills. You need to think out of the box. You need to have a lot of networks and social engagement. So so these programs help those boys also to be better prepared for a new kind of world, where they're able to respect their partners and, you know, work together to make a better world in future. The other two programs that we have Badhte Kadam. Badhte Kadam is basically focused on building livelihoods for girls, and we handhold them right from the time when they are in school through career guidance workshops, skill trainings, and skill them up in such a way that they're able to go into the job market. And the fourth program that we have is a gender resource center, which is basically talking about creating public, you know, spaces for women in public. Spaces is a notional term कि मतलब एक जगह जहाँ पे मैं जा पाऊँ और मुझे services मिल पाए, या फिर किसी अपने community में बाहर जाके बैठना, जैसे आदमी चौपाल में बैठते हैं, औरतें भी क्यों ना जाके चौपाल में बैठें or discuss politics or talk about the issues of the community. So that's how we go out there and do it. So I've taken a lot of time. I just want to quickly tell Rahat to play those two film clips just to give you all a perspective on how we work. Rahat? ये स्क्रीन बंद करना पड़ेगा. राहत, ये टीपीटी ही दिख रहा है. पीपीटी आप बंद करके फिर वो करना ना.
Okay, ma'am.
So while she's setting it up, is there any kind of questions? And then Rahat, once you said, you can let us know, and then we'll.
Yeah, Malika, we can take the questions
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
and then
Yes.
we can play the video
Okay.
after that.
Thank you, ma'am, for an informative session. I'd like the students to raise their hands if they have any questions. Yeah, Parul, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. A very good evening, ma'am. So my name is Parul Jinder from third year. Ma'am, my question is that since we talked about equality, there is one in Khasi tribe in Meghalaya. They follow the tradition on the matrilineal. Matriarchy. There is a kind of matriarchy found in them. They take the youngest daughter inherits from the mother, and same as like patriarchy. So are we going to criticize that also?
It isn't about a criticism, okay? There would be nothing wrong with patriarchy if it didn't cause discrimination and violence, right? The reason why we analyze patriarchy and when we talk about a feminist movement, one fundamental thing is that a feminist movement never talked about replacing patriarchy with matriarchy. That's not logical. That's not a logical binary to that conversation. The entire discourse of the feminist movement is based on human rights, on equality, and like equality from a substantive equality point of view, whatever your social structure may be. However, you are most welcome to craft your own social structure, right? There's so many societies across the world. Matrilineal societies ki baat kar rahe ho, you look at Kerala, you have such a high rate of domestic violence there. We are well aware that in matrilineal societies also women face a lot of violence. I know that they are overburdened by work. They do so much. They are going out there collecting fodder. They're carrying these heavy sacks on their back. They are almost like single parents looking after their children. So that is also gendered problems. The reason for unpacking patriarchy is because patriarchy really covers almost 90% of social forms, especially in India. But I'm really wanting you to think about it from a human rights perspective, because social forms may vary. So what lens are we going to wear to know what's right, what's wrong? Koi keh de ki acha, girls must sit like this, girls must do this, boys must do that. How are you going to figure it out? How are you going to argue that out? If someone says, no, it's not in our culture, girls must stay at home and not go to study. What is the language you're going to use to argue with that person? Like there was a time, right, where we practiced sati in India, and Raja Ram Mohan Roy led that social reform movement where you kind of spoke to people and said that, no, you can't have sati. Now, the thing is, if you're having that conversation, what do you base that conversation on? If you're going to base it on religious texts, or you're going to base it on social, structures of that kind, cultural norms, it's a difficult space to argue from. Therefore, I would suggest for you all to refer to the normative standards that I spoke about earlier. And what are your normative standards? Look up the UN, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and also do look up the CEDAW, that is the Convention for the Prevention of Discrimination Against Women. It's the what would I say, the Bible or the Quran or the Gita of the women's movement, as in all gender rights, all the standards are mentioned in that convention. So when you are trying to understand that, how am I to argue, should girls, like there's so many instances where it's the way the policy is framed is so unfair to women. But how are you going to argue it out? You will have to base it on human rights. You have to base it on those set of rules which say that men and women are equal. So my point of talking about patriarchy was just to give you a sense of where these stereotypes come from. Having said that, they are other kinds of communities that there's so many across the world. Amazonian women are known to be this big, warrior women, etc. So it's not like all societies perceive their women and men in the same way. So your point is well taken that it's different over there. But when you're talking about gender discrimination, that will take another session, actually, trying to compress so many very big ideas. A lot of this is to do with capitalism, the way capitalism has really been striding on patriarchy and this consumer culture. If you look at, things like dowry system, for example, why did dowry system become, the way it is? It was really not the way it is like this earlier. It's just become like that because of this consumerism, wanting to make quick money, etc. So yeah, I mean, gender issues are there in non-patriarchal societies as well, even in matrilineal communities.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
Can we
ma'am.
just play the film, Rahat?
Football is an extraordinary tool to develop girls' agency. Sequin has been using football as a tool for adolescent girl empowerment through its Kickstart Equality project, and we have seen amazing impact in the context of education, health, building their leadership skills, decision-making power, enhancing their mobility, as well as the increased social networks that they create through this game.
What do we need to give them? One ball. And then they come out and they claim that space. It's theirs. They should be able to walk out on any street corner. The way you see the boys playing, it should also be the girls.
जब हमने उनको इंट्रोडक्शन कराया तो काफ़ी बच्चे थे जो बोल ही नहीं रहे थे. सबसे चैलेंजिंग था यही.
तो फील्ड में लड़कियां खेलने के लिए होती, पहले दिन अगर आप देखिए या पहले राउंड ऑफ कैंप्स में हमने किया, लड़कियां दुपट्टा उतारने को तैयार नहीं थी.
आस पड़ोस के लोगों ने उन लोगों को बहुत टीज दिया, बहुत ये कहा कि लड़कियां बाहर नहीं जाती, उन्हें मत भेजो. लेकिन हम लोगों ने अपनी मम्मी पापा को समझाया कि नहीं, हम आगे बढ़ेंगे.
फुटबॉल जब पहली बार उठाई थी तो ऐसा घबराहट से महसूस हो रही थी, खेल पाऊंगी नहीं खेल पाऊंगी, दी कभी मुझे बाहर तो नहीं निकाल देंगे.
वहाँ के बच्चों को देखकर ना हमें डायरेक्टली क्लिक हुआ, अपना पास जो हम गुजार चुके थे वो हमारे सामने आ गया कि सेम ऐसे ही हम भी ग्राउंड पे गए थे. हमें भी कुछ पता नहीं था क्या है फुटबॉल, कैसा है. सेम वो बच्चे भी वैसे थे, उन्हें फुटबॉल के बारे में कुछ पता नहीं था.
खड़ी होकर कोचिंग करा रही थी और मेरे सामने बच्चे खड़े हुए थे. मैंने कहा ये जो 4 कदम मैं आपसे दूरी पर खड़ी हूँ, ये मैंने 8 साल में पूरे किए.
मैं चाहती हूँ कि कुछ बनूँ, क्योंकि मैं जब भी स्पोर्ट्स में कुछ लेती थी तो हमेशा लास्ट ही आती थी, कभी फर्स्ट नहीं आई, कभी किसी चीज़ में नहीं. तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि आगे बढ़ूँ और मेरे पापा को भी पता चले कि मैं आगे जा सकती हूँ.
जब मैं मेडल लेके घर पहुंची शाम के वक्त, और जब मैंने मम्मी को अपने मेडल दिखाया और उनकी आंखों में जो खुशी के आंसू और वो जो चमक थी वो मुझसे देखी नहीं गई. जिंदगी में पहली बार मैंने वो मेडल जीता.
Sequin, 7 साल पहले 7 years ago I came here. 2012 में सारा जो लड़कियां खेल रही थी जामिया से, आज कहाँ है वो? ऑफिशियल्स हैं, मैच रेफरीज हैं, कोचेस, देयर यू आर, ऑल ऑफ यू.
सीक्विन के थ्रू मैंने ज्वाइन किया, वहाँ से मैंने खेला और आज मैं नेशनल लेवल तक खेल चुकी हूँ. उसके साथ साथ मैं कोचिंग भी कराती हूँ काफ़ी जगह पे, जैसे दिल्ली सॉकर एसोसिएशन, सीक्विन एंड BBFS. और आज इन बच्चों में कुछ इतने अच्छे बच्चे हैं, कुछ स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं, काफ़ी सारे टैलेंट देखने को मिलता है. अगर अभी से हम इन टैलेंट पे फोकस करें तो मे भी हो सकता है आने वाले टाइम में हम काफ़ी अच्छे प्लेयर्स स्काउटिंग कर सकते हैं.
As Sequin, we are going to make sure that they are enabled and that they can.
We want to join hands with several others to create a football revolution for girls at the grassroots level. We want to create pathways of excellence so that these girls can make us proud of them.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so there was another clip, but I don't think we really have time. Do we have another? It's a short 1-minute clip. you let me know. It's just to give you a sense about our work with the boys. If you have time, then we can play that. Otherwise, we can wrap it up here. You can let me know. Do we have like Rahat? It's about it's about 2 minutes. Should we play?
Ma'am, we'd take a wrap up. Can we have the video? We can share it with the students over the link.
Sure. Yeah. So Rahat, if you can share it on
the technical team will share it with the students.
Yeah, great. Okay, we can close the PPT, Rahat.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this enlightening lecture and the experiences that you've shared through your organization with us today. I'm sure that the students have also been able to gather new insights from the diverse experience which paved this lecture today. I'd like to bring this lecture now to a close before proceeding for the next lecture, which will be held tomorrow, 6th November 2020 at 4 p.m. on the subject of gender, feminist jurisprudence and constitution. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here with our students, and to all the students for participating in this lecture.
Thank you so much, Laura, ma'am. It was an honor to have you here, and students are really happy and very, very inspired by your lecture, and they would really learn a lot in their lives with this.